That. Thank you. All right. Well, hello, everybody in Zoom land. I'm hoping can hear me too. And welcome everyone here to WCAG Unwrapped. Yes, sir. Oh, okay. I think it's coming around. So thank you very much so make sure make sure you get the sign up sheet before you leave today. It's real important for us to know because we are so excited to have you here for what we call WCAG Unwrapped, a person's perspective or the person's perspective to digital accessibility experiences. I don't even know the name of my own talk, but anyway, I do know that we are at Access U 2025, and I guess it's just because I am so excited to be here, quite truly. Okay, so the big question of the day, what is WCAG truly about? Now I know you're chomping at the bit because you know the answer, right? You got it. You know what WCAG is truly about. Okay, well, hold on to that thought for one moment. But I want you to think about it as we go through this presentation.
All right, well, I guess we can introduce ourselves. My name is Robin Eckelberry, and I work at Nelnet with Dave Dauber. We are accessibility trainers, and I used to work actually in higher education with students with disabilities, working a lot with assistive technology, different types of remediation for textbooks and assignments, things like that. And Dave?
And I'm Dave Dauber. As she said, I go by Dave D because it rhymes with accessibility. So hopefully you can remember me for that. I've been doing digital accessibility for probably 15, 16 years or so. I kind of lost track, but I've really been in the accessibility world all my life. I was born with cerebral palsy, and now today I use an electric wheelchair to get around. So ever since I was in kindergarten, I remember going through fights at school of arguing with the school board of, well, we need this place ramped and this facility and moving classrooms from outdoor portables because the only way to get into them were stairs into inside classrooms. So I've been dealing with accessibility my whole life, really, physical accessibility of it. And then when I learned about digital accessibility through Nobility and participating with Air Austin years and years ago, which is a web building competition on making sure that your website is accessible, I just fell in love with digital accessibility and I wanted to give back because I was one of those techie people. And I wanted to give back to others that needed help with digital accessibility. And I've been doing it ever since. I've been to Access U probably, I don't know, over a dozen times, talking about captioning and doing voice control and all kinds of things. And now today, I'm really excited to be sharing Robin and I's view on WCAG, along with several friends of ours.
So today what we're going to be doing is a brief overview of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, because mainly we're going to be spending time on what we call the people perspective. We are going to be showing videos of people who we interviewed who have shared their perspectives of digital accessibility with us. And as they share their stories, we'll connect these real people experiences back to WCAG. And we'll be doing that actually. We have little avatars of ourselves that we like to use in some of our training videos. So hopefully that will be kind of fun. And we'll also be trying to make this pretty interactive with a kind of a question, a poll, so to speak, of the room to see what you think. We'll get to that when we get to that about, well, let's explain once we get there. And then we'll be talking as a group about the experiences shared, because maybe some of the experiences shared resonate with you or your clients or your friends. And we want to brainstorm solutions together. What has worked? Let's try to, leave this with some practical ideas that we can take forward. And then we'll wrap up.
Okay, let's start with our overview. All right. So how many have looked at the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG? Okay. Did anybody else in the room feel like this man in this picture? So there's a little guy. Some of you maybe can't see him, but he's next to these great big gargantuan redwood trees, right? There's only 2 trees in the picture, and they're going up over, above the picture, and the width, you can only see like half of the trees on either side. WCAG is huge, right? It is so hard to get into and really understand what they're trying to say. I mean, it's so huge, probably half of us in this room can't even agree on how to pronounce it, right? Some people call it WCAG, some people call it WCAG, WCAG, and then I have another guy that I work with, and he says, "Oh no, it's WCAG. It stands for something. You have to say what it stands for, not just some acronym for it. WCAG, WCAG." Anyway, we have trouble agreeing just on the name of it, because it's so huge and there's so many parts to it. But how can we break that down a little bit, Robin?
Good question. Well, one way to start breaking WCAG into pieces is to think of it like a chapter book with 4 chapters. And these chapters are titled Perceivable, Operable, Understandable, and Robust. And taking the first letters of those, they spell out POUR, P-O-U-R. And so P stands for perceivable. These are the success criteria that begin with the number 1. And in a nutshell, it says that we need to make sure that whoever's accessing the content, whether they have low vision or blind, have mobility disabilities, maybe they're deaf, hard of hearing, they can perceive that content through vision, hearing, touch, multiple senses. O stands for operable, and these are the success criteria that begin with the number 2. And these say that we need to make sure that everyone who's using the content can make it function, whether with assistive technologies like screen readers, keyboards, eye gaze, speech recognition, or even without assistive technology. Like, we need to make sure that content is not flashing so much that it can be causing adverse physical events for people who have epilepsy or lighter motion sensitivities. Then we have U. U stands for understandable. And these are the success criteria that begin with the number 3. And these say that we need to make sure our content is clear to everyone, using correct language, defining those abbreviations, alerting to errors if we're filling out forms, for example. And we just want to avoid having our content be confusing. And then finally, R stands for robust. And these are the success criteria that begin with the number 4. And they say that we need to make sure our content works with different operating systems, devices, assistive technologies, things like that. So like the image on this screen, on the slide of a book with some glasses laid over it, one way to begin to understand the very technical, very huge redwood forest of WCAG from this high level chapter kind of approach. That's one way. But Dave, what about another way?
Another way is to take this person first approach that Robin and I love to take whenever we're explaining about what WCAG is. And knowing people first, WCAG can be more easily what we call unwrapped. And the image here is a box with blocks in it for WCAG. And we're going to try to unwrap it today. You, me, and everybody in the room.
Okay, so let's get right into those people perspectives. We'll be sharing videos of people sharing their experiences with technology and the digital world. And these people have various interests, passions, and disabilities. And as they share their stories, we will interject again with our avatars, connecting the real experiences back to WCAG. And to help unwrap WCAG a bit more too, at the end of each video, we will be asking you to participate a little too by giving your best shot at what principle you think what they're talking about relates to. So remember, 1 is perceivable, 2 is operable, 3 is understandable, and 4 is robust. So first we have Hina, and we got to work with Hina for a while. So let's learn her story and we will unwrap WCAG through it.
Hi, I am Hina. I am totally blind. I enjoy reading, volunteering, tech, cooking, socializing, adventurous, and I am a mother, so spending time with my family. I use screen readers all the time on my phone as well as on the web. Sometimes braille displays and stuff, but mostly with the screen readers. Sometimes they make unlabeled buttons.
Unlabeled buttons are so unhelpful. Like this shopping cart and this account button. Here's how JAWS reads them.
Unlabeled 0 button. To activate, press enter. Unlabeled 2 button. To activate, press enter.
How would we know what they are from that? The good thing is that WCAG supports making sure that buttons read what they are, like shopping cart button and account button, through success criteria like 1.1.1 non-text content, 2.5.3 label and name, and 4.1.2 name role value.
And sometimes there are carousels that display some promotions and stuff that just jumps all over the place.
Auto-playing carousels are the worst, and in general, carousels are problematic for many reasons. But if they are used, people should be able to know they are in a carousel, be able to clearly understand and move it forward or backward with a keyboard, know what the visible changes are as you make them, and be able to pause or stop the carousel if it autoplays longer than 5 seconds. WCAG supports this through success criteria like 1.3.1 info and relationships, 2.1.1 keyboard, and 2.2.2 pause, stop, hide.
My son's has the A&H Connect. They have those all the times, those AG grid tables where his grades and assignments are shown. And I can't understand sometimes like which grade is associated to which assignment. It's just the grid is not accessible. He can be telling me he's done so he can play video games, but I can't verify.
I hear you, Hina. People should be able to know the relationships between table headers like assignment and grade, and the data within the table like 90% for quiz 1, 80% for essay 2, or 0% for assignment 3. The good news is that WCAG supports this through success criteria like 1.3.1 info and relationships.
When the colleges and universities and schools are looking to add those apps or tools for the students or anyone, they don't validate for accessibility. You should be responsible for making sure it's accessible or not before you sign a contract with a company.
All right. Now it's time to play Name That Principal.
Yes, so Hina shared with us her challenges with knowing what buttons are without seeing them, being able to go through carousels that are auto-playing, slideshows on a site, and being able to know what her son's grades are in the grading tables on his school website. And our avatars went over some of the WCAG success criteria that the experience is related to. So now it's your turn. What principal or principals, maybe there's more than one, do you think that these experiences relate to. And so we've got 1 perceivable, 2 operable, 3 understandable, or 4 robust. For anyone on Zoom, you're welcome to use the chat to put in what you think. All right, for the classroom.
What do you think? Anybody? What?
1 and 3.
1, 3, 2, and 3. So we got 1, 2, and 3. Anybody for 4? Who's the first one that said 1? You said 1?
Number 4.
Oh, okay.
It's
Oh, sorry.
He's gotta be able. I was making a case for number 4, because if she uses 2 different types of devices, whatever she's looking at has to be accessible by both.
Right, right. They're 2 different things, right? Okay, so here we go. Got a sticker. Where are our stickers?
1, 2, and 4.
Yeah, just pass them around. They're I think everybody won. Jeez. All right, so there's prizes coming around. Stickers, take 1, take 2. If you see one in there that matches you, that's great. Did you have a question? Oh, hang on. Let us get the mic back to you. We want them to hear you online. Thank you.
So, which one was the correct one? And it seems during the playback, she actually mentioned that she was having trouble understanding what the buttons were supposed to do. So, I didn't personally.
You gonna take that, Robin?
Let's find out. Okay. So we do have the ones that she specifically called out were perceivable, operable, and robust. Being able to know what things are without sight and operate them without or with various technologies, meaning robust. However, to your point, understandable, sure, she didn't understand what the buttons were, primarily though, because the perception of those buttons wasn't there because they didn't have accessible names. It was unlabeled 0 button, that kind of thing. So, yeah, very good, everybody. Thank you. So at this point, we just wanted to invite some conversation here. Does anyone in this room have experiences similar to Hina's, or maybe your friends or family or clients do? And if so, share what were your solutions? Got one over here?
So I'm an ADA coordinator at a university, and our online learning management system is Brightspace through D2L. And a lot of the faculty, when they put their assignments in the grade book or quizzes in the grade book, the exact same barrier that is experiencing for some of our students. And so part of the solution that I'm looking at with our instructional designer is creating a template that all faculty will have to use that meets these guidelines so that it'll just be accessible for every student. But it's the same challenge of coordinating where the grade is and the assignment versus the quiz. It's very difficult.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great story. Wow. That's identical to hers, right? And people are calling, complaining because their students, she can't tell the grades, and the students are like, okay, whatever, I'm good. I'm off to play Minecraft. I'm done. Anybody else? Yeah.
Fairly ageless person when it comes to a digital space. Thinking about things like buttons, if you're only using a visual image to convey what that is, even if you're not using a screen reader and just looking at that, hovering over it, trying to navigate somewhere. Even his experience highlighted the importance of using multiple ways to communicate what something is for someone who can navigate around a digital space fairly easily.
Yeah. And so you recognize that too, even though you can see it, like, what does that button do? What does that mean, right? It's a picture of a house. Okay. Am I going to go home? Or is it going to show me what my air conditioner is set on at home? What's going on? What's the home for? So yeah, exactly. It can be confusing even if you can see a picture of it. You just don't know the label. Are you ready to meet somebody else?
Everyone. Our next person is Jeannie. And I got to work with Jeannie at the community college where I worked prior to working with Unwrapped. And she is the Interpreting Services Coordinator and American Sign Language Department Chair. So let's learn her story and unwrap it.
Hello, my name is Jeannie. Being in with the interpreting and deaf culture, that world, there's a lot of Hello, my name is Jeannie. Being in with the interpreting and deaf culture, that world, there's a lot of technologies that I use on my phone now. We have Marco Polo and WhatsApp and just all the kinds of things. Outside of technology, I love my dog. She's my world. So I spent a lot of time with her. I've been using the captioning, but for me, this side is completely deaf. I hear nothing out of it. This side, I have some hearing, and if I have an earbud, which I do now, it does help me because I can adjust the volume on my computer. Sometimes the captioning isn't all that wonderful and you get some really strange sentences. So sometimes between my hearing loss and the captions, I get a little confused.
Indeed, Jeannie. When captions are not accurate, or if dialogue or sound effects are left out, especially when they are your primary method of getting information, it can be really difficult. WCAG has 2 success criteria for captioning: 1.2.2 captions for pre-recorded media and 1.2.4 captions for live.
Definitely with Zoom, when I have the interpreter and the captions both, that is amazing.
Good point. People communicate and receive information in multiple ways, and WCAG supports sign language in its success criterion of 1.2.6 sign language pre-recorded.
Yeah, it's not always easy, as a hearing person, if your app goes down or whatever, but you could still hear it. Hey, I can still hear it. I may not be able to see anybody, but I can still hear it. Technology doesn't always work. Everybody's had some sort of technology issue. But if you take that tenfold for people with visual problems and hearing problems, it exacerbates the weakness in the technology part. So it can be very frustrating, and then it leads to, like I said, people going,
woman signs later.
I don't need to know that. Just tell me later, because that's what they've heard all their lives, we'll tell you later. But then that leads to like employees not being up to date when everybody else is, or not being able to fulfill their job description as well as they could because they're not getting the information that they need.
All right, so Jeannie shared with us more about her experiences with captions and sign language interpretation. So captions and sign language interpretation.
Name that principle.
What? Anyone for operable too? Possibly operable, 3 understandable, maybe 4 robust. Some head nods, but mostly 1 perceivable. What did Zoom folks say? Folks on Zoom, anything in the chat?
No questions on the chat.
All right, so Zoom is protesting because they didn't get any stickers. But you all got the stickers already. Sorry, Zoom people. But you can play along too. All right. Perceivable. Thank you.
Yes. Perceivable is the one, at least in WCAG, where captions and sign language are read. So again, it's time for us to chat. You know, does anyone have any personal experience or friends or family experience with, you know, captions, sign language, getting equitable access to audio?
Got one over here.
Yes, I'm a lot like Jeannie in that I'm deaf in this ear, but hear perfectly in this ear, unlike her, but it presents a lot of problems, like being in a conference room. And hearing is a lot like vision. If you lose sight in one eye, you lose the ability to focus and get depth perception. With hearing, it's the same way. So background noise over there will blend in with Dave's hearing over here. So that creates a lot of overlap where I can't focus on him. I'm focusing on a wrapper crinkling over there.
Oh, okay.
So that's where captions come in perfectly. I used to live in a house that had a loud air conditioner in it. And I couldn't pick up the TV with coming in from there. So that's, again, another thing, as well as driving in a car with someone on this side of me, I can't hear it. If this ear was deaf, if I drove to a drive-through window for a restaurant, I kind of wonder if I would need a caption for white jar fries. So some of the challenges and why captions are important.
And, you know, when you have assisted technologies like hearing aids, like I do, those wrappers are incredibly loud sometimes too, and it makes it difficult to even though that you have the amplification, you have all these other things that are also being amplified. And like my hearing loss is high frequency, so like those wrappers are really loud because they're being amplified. So that makes captions necessary for me even when I'm watching TV, even though my hearing is mostly corrected using my hearing aids. So
I just want to say that I believe that it even goes even further, and it doesn't even just affect just people with disabilities with like hearing loss, but to everybody. I mean, you know, sometimes I'll watch stuff, and I'm sure a lot of people do. People may have speech with different dialects, or you know, English is their first language, and so you're just trying to understand, you know, fully understand, and so closed captioning really helps in that aspect as well. You know, some people from down south, they may have a more southern, you know, twang. So I think it just is important to close captioning so everybody can completely understand.
That's right, y'all. Welcome to Texas. So yeah, that is a great point. I mean, how many of us do turn on captions at home? I would say almost the whole room, and that's absolutely right. Yeah.
So I have an employee who's deaf, and I think he would say I was being remiss if I didn't add a qualifier to the use of interpreters and make sure that it's a qualified interpreter, not just any interpreter. The deaf community often gets shortchanged when we insert somebody who's not qualified for the interpreter task, and there are different levels of interpreters, and so we want to make sure that we're meeting their need for that level of skill when it comes to interpreting technical information and not just plug in any interpreter.
Sure. Thanks, Ron. Yeah.
Well, and then I think it's also the quality of the captions, because like, for instance, if people are going ahead and uploading videos to YouTube and they're just going ahead and relying on the YouTube feature to auto caption the text for them. The thing is that sometimes the captions don't match what's actually being spoken.
Yeah. I call those craptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, we get them all the time. And we do. We really try a lot to make sure that our captions are in sync. Robin and I had mentioned, you know, we do training at Nelnet. A lot of people request when we do those trainings that we provide recordings of those trainings, and we're like, okay, but we're going to make sure that they're accessible. So it's going to take us a little bit of time. You're not going to get those recordings tomorrow. Yeah, the recordings are there and they can happen instantly, but we want to make sure that when we send you the recording, we send you legitimate captions that match the dialogue. They're at the right time, and they're the right thing, right? They're the right words typed out. I-
you using auto captioning right now or are you using paid captioning?
we're using auto captioning right now, but we're going back through and fixing the auto captions. Yeah. This is great. I love all the communication.
To what the gentleman said over again, I think captions enhances everyone's experience with watching video. I turn them on, so I can get extra clues, like the background discussions come up in captions sometimes. So a lot of clues that aren't even a part of the normal dialogue track are present. So I think it really enhances the watching experience for captions for someone like me as well.
Yeah, like what was that bang in the background? Oh, the caption said it was a gunshot. Well, I should have paid attention to that, right? Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thanks. I think we're ready to meet somebody else, Robin.
Dave, you'd like to introduce our next person?
It's me. I'm up. Who are we meeting next? Oh, Mark. Mark, he is our GOAT at Nelnet. He started accessibility at Nelnet. And he's going to kind of, I don't want to give it away because he's going to talk about that a little bit in his talk, but I didn't want you guys to miss it. And I have to just say that Mark is brilliant. If we ever have any accessibility questions, man, we go to him and he said, oh yeah, I looked that up last week. Or something like, you're shaking your head, yes. You know the guy, right? You know, I mean, you know a guy or a woman in your facility that's like that, right? And we have Mark at Nelnet, and he's just incredible. So anyway, without further ado, I want you to meet Mark.
My name is Mark Thorson. You know, I grew up kind of like other kids. I love video games and things like that. And that kind of grew my passion for computing and technology. But I rely on ID and speech recognition to do everything on computer. I am an accessibility team lead at Nelnet. The journey at Nelnet I actually began at a company called Great Lakes. I was just a front end developer, and I pointed out to my boss that we need an accessibility program, and this is something I'm passionate about. And soon after that, we were acquired by Nelnet. Nelnet saw the value of our team, and eventually we've even become a diversified business now as accessibility as a service. For someone that can't get around, the computer itself is a godsend. It's my world to communicate with literally everyone that's not in my home. Something that really impacts me with eye gaze.
A circle overlays a website and follows Mark's eye gaze. A menu appears, and he chooses the click option, bringing him to a new page.
Sites or apps that are buttons or things that are too small. That takes me more time to do things like that. They're really tiny.
Small buttons or links can be really hard to touch, click on, and see. WCAG has success criteria to make sure they are big enough, like 2.5.5 target size enhanced and 2.5.8 target size minimum.
Things that have higher contrast, that are easy to read, that I know are interactive. Maybe they've got a border that's obvious. That just helps. It makes things faster and easier and more understandable.
That makes sense, Mark. And WCAG has 3 success criteria that support good color contrast for both text and for things that aren't text, like important graphics or buttons. 1.4.3 contrast minimum, 1.4.6 contrast enhanced, and 1.4.11 non-text contrast.
For me, with a disability, we often are very prideful. We don't like to try something. Usually I was using a keyboard and mouse, and I stuck with it forever, and probably struggled longer than I should have. Then I found speech recognition, and wow, amen, it answered my prayers. And then eventually, it got harder to navigate, and I was mouthing things and not being able to speak as fast and as well as I used to. Have no mouse capability at all now. So I found eyes and another answer to my prayer.
What a good perspective. Abilities can change over our lives, and the digital world should match them. WCAG supports this through the guidelines of Compatible 4.1.
I wish I had tried this earlier. I would have been a lot more productive. So, you know, you kind of wait until you hit the breaking point. That's not always a good philosophy. Find it when you need it and benefit early.
Conceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. What was Mark talking about? One, two, and four. Okay. He was using different things. Yeah.
But really seeing the content, having content large enough to activate, being able to use various assistive technologies across his lifespan. Are we ready?
I think we're ready.
1, 2, and 4, perceivable, operable, and robust. Well done, everybody.
You guys got this. See? Who thought WCAG was hard, right? Not for us. Not for this group. So yeah, I mean, Mark is incredible. He's an accessibility guru. You know, he's really got it down. But in order for Mark to be able to function at his job, he has to have his things accessible. So we, as an accessibility team within Nelnet, have to make sure that we're providing accessible products for Mark to use. And that's what we do. I mean, we make sure when we look at vendors or third-party people that are coming in, we look at their accessibility because it's important to us to make sure that, oh, the head of accessibility can actually use the stuff, right? So that's what we do. And we teach and help other companies to do that too. And that's what Robin and I do a lot with training, and coaching. We'll go in and we'll work on specific PDFs if we have to, specific web pages. So, but we love to take the people's perspective and make sure that people, your clients, can use your product. Anybody have any stories that are pretty close to Mark's about maybe using different assistive technologies throughout their lives, or somebody that they know? Hang on, we're going to get you the mic. Just so they can hear you out in Zoom land. Yeah. So Robin, can you summarize that a little bit? Testing is very difficult.
So testing target size can be very difficult.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, yeah, we've got some tools for that. Bookmarklets. I can't think of what it's actually called. Have you heard of bookmarklets before? Bookmarklets. Okay, yeah, there's a bookmarklet on size, and it will make your cursor be the right size for the touch point, according to WCAG anyway. So, yep, that's great. That touch size is really hard to do. I also had a friend at one point that was quadriplegic. He had very minimal use of his hands, and he used a trackball to move his mouse around. And if the target size was too small, he would go on some other web page because he could not get his hand to move his trackball into a very small thing like a radio button or a button. So yeah, that is very difficult.
have a favorite tool for checking for color contrast?
Except the color contrast, that's two. It's a plugin that you can install in your machine and it's quickly pick any color on your screen and you can test the color contrast.
Where did it from?
I think it's an app store on Mac. I don't know if it is a Bloomberg or not.
WebAIM has a great color contrast checker that browser based.
Agreed. We recommend that one all the time as well. It's really easy, right? Just go to the website. Yep.
Designer, Figma has a lot of really great color contrast plugins. I think there's one specifically called Contrast, and it does a really good job of allowing you to click into the specific thing that you're wanting to test color contrast on. It's not just text, it can also detect non-text items like buttons or anything with a border radius, and can detect it against the background. So love that for product design.
All right. Anybody else using Figma? No? Okay, yeah. Have you used the color contrast checker in Figma? Okay, great. Very cool. Lots of ways to do it. You should-
I'm a UX designer, we work on Figma, but there is something wrong about Apple default library. If you are following those color contrast things, if you go to settings in Apple, those color contrasts are not meeting the compliance. It's not compliant. So Apple say go to the accessibility and turn on the high contrast thing if you want to make it accessible.
Oh, okay.
So we were using the same library in our application, then someone came to us and say, your application is not accessible. We told them to turn on the contrast, but WCAG guidelines clearly say Apple is providing just you the platform to make that application accessible is your responsibility. So it should work without turning that setting on.
Sure. Awesome. But if it's not, you can turn that setting on. Very good. Yes, I'm an Apple guy myself. I like Apple. Anyway, thanks, Bill, for coming. Bill's with Nelnet as well in the back of the room there. He's at Nelnet has a table. They're a sponsor of Access U. So hey, go Nelnet. Yeah. So he'll be over there at that table. And afterwards, if you want to continue the conversation about WCAG and your like mind is blown and overloaded with all of this stuff, go talk to Bill and we can help you do some training with Robin and I or whoever else. If you need help with your website, documents, whatever, we can do it. Didn't mean to turn that into a sales pitch, but oh, checks in the mail, right, Bill? Anyway, yeah, with the laptop for Robin, yeah. Anyway, go see Bill, and Lene is over there too, our accessibility manager. So love to have you guys talk to him. If you didn't get a sticker, he's also got some more stickers. All right, but next, let's meet Eric. And I know Eric because he lives here in Austin. I live in Austin too. And we cross paths. We're at concerts and, we're fighting over the accessible bathroom at the same time. But anyway, I know Eric from there, and I asked him if he wanted to talk about some of the tools that he used, and he said, sure, because I use them all the time and sometimes without even knowing it. So here's Eric.
Alexa, turn on the office door.
Eric maneuvers his electric wheelchair from his living room to his office, where an automatic door closes behind him.
So yeah, my name's Eric Clow. I'm 37 years old. I am basically a full-time writer at this point and podcaster. On Substack, I write a bi-monthly newsletter about my birding adventures because I love watching birds, and I also write about my life in general as a individual with a disability. I have Becker muscular dystrophy, but it's really not the centerpiece of my life. I'd say the center of my life is writing, and it's a love for birds and all things nature, and it's a love for my wife and our two little corgis who are our fur babies. And technology plays a role in everything that I do, really. You know, from writing, which I use Drag and Dictate or Apple Voice Control to do. Some websites I go to, like say using voice control, where all of the buttons, I can speak all the buttons with my voice, or I guess voice control like can pick up all the different buttons on the screen. But other websites, I can't speak any of the buttons. There's no overlay that, voice control has something called a numbers overlay, where it pops a number beside every little button on the screen. So some websites I go to, there's not a single one that has a number associated with it, which means that to access any of those buttons, I have to open up like 8 or 10 different grids and slowly zoom into the one button. And I can tell you how exhausting that is. And I'm like, I'm dropping out of that website. I'm not going to use it.
I use speech recognition too, Eric. We shouldn't have to problem solve to click on something that should be obvious. We should just be able to say the name of something to click on and go there. WCAG has success criteria to support this, like 2.5.3, label and name, and 4.1.2, name role value.
It would be great if both my PC and my iPhone and my iPad, if the websites like were accessible for all those different devices, because often I encounter one website's great for Drag and Dictate, one website's great for my phone, one website's great for my iPad, and it's like having to juggle between these different devices. It'd be great if each website worked across all the devices.
Agreed. People shouldn't have to figure out which combinations of devices and assistive technologies work with which things. And WCAG aims to have everything accessible across devices too, with its guidance of compatible 4.1.
The Merlin Bird ID, that app through Cornell Lab of Ornithology, it is totally accessible. In the moment, I'm not immediately connecting to, oh, this app is very accessible, and therefore I'm enjoying using it at the moment. Like I don't have that thought. It's just I keep opening the app, I keep using the app. The app is changing my life. Then years after, I can talk to you now and say, that app is totally accessible and it changed my life.
Notice that the accessibility is there. It should just be there. Yeah. Ooh, so we already started playing Name That Principle. We yelled out robust right in the middle of it. Encourage you guys to keep doing that. What was another one, Robin? Or anybody else?
Relating to being able to say the names of buttons directly to activate them. Being able to use voice control equally well across devices. Anyone on Zoom have a guess? 1 perceivable, 2 operable, 3 understandable, 4 robust. 2. Got 2. Got 4. So someone say number 1, 2. Perceivable? No. Anyone on Zoom chat? Okay. All right, well, let's find out. Hey, operable and robust. Good work, everybody. And so again, we just ask everyone, do you have stories to share, your own, someone you know similar to Eric's? And what solutions can you think of or have done? We don't have any.
Okay.
I'm just reminded of. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if we're
Coming with
testing,
me from.
oh. I was just gonna ask, so if we're testing with a screen reader, if we're doing keyboard only navigation, or just hovering over, would that fall under operational and robust for a button like that? Is that what you're looking for? Keyboard hovering over, if I'm testing and I'm using keyboard only navigation, like for buttons, I think that's what we're still talking about, to be able to say it, or if I'm hovering with my screen reader, would that work under the operable and robust?
Yeah, so operable would definitely be for keyboard testing, like 2.1.1 would be operable for sure. Screen reader testing falls under a lot of criteria. One of them could be keyboard as well, but just operable. Yeah.
But then screen reader also falls under perceivable, right? We've talked about that too a lot. So yeah, you're hitting a lot of different places with screen reader, definitely.
I was just gonna have the fifth standard of WCAG. There was a gentleman named Bill that worked at our system technology unit when I worked for DARS, and he always said that your website should not remind me that I have a disability. And certainly when this all clicks together, perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust, it's like you said, it's just seamless, the access, and seeing the effort that person has to go through to use a grid to how to get the gun sight on the button is just incredible. So begs the question, why hasn't Dragon Naturally Speaking come up with something more elegant than a gun sight to shoot the button?
Yeah, the most elegant thing, of course, then is, with the voice control is just by having your buttons labeled and being able to say the name of the button, just like you would, click OK, rather than having to drill down. And while we're on the voice control talk, I'll just pitch my talk. I'm talking again tomorrow morning. If you all are up early enough to come in at 8:30, but I'm talking about using voice control. And we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff, Ron, too, of drilling down, using the grid, or what you should do, what you could do, and then also some arguments I get into with my screen reader friends. 8:30 tomorrow morning, you'll find out. We got another person, Robin? We got time for another one? Are we doing good? Okay.
Is Kyle. I was not initially what most people would consider disabled until much later in life. I did grow up with quite a few learning disabilities, some of which I'm still finding out. I became deathly ill at about 26. I went in the hospital sick, and then I got aspirational pneumonia, 2 different superbugs simultaneously, and that pretty much very nearly killed me. So I was completely paralyzed for some time. I was very fortunate to get my left arm back at 100%. Unfortunately, I was right-handed, and I'm still lacking most of the function of my right hand. My main hobby would be video games. I started playing mostly indie games that didn't require as much speed and timing, and they had much more simple controls. And I sort of figured out that I could, if the control modalities were not overly complicated, and the developers had enabled you to customize your controls to a certain extent, that I could play a lot of games pretty effectively left-handed on a laptop, using the touchpad as a mouse with my thumb, and cover a lot of the keyboard with differing effectiveness depending on how far I have to stretch. And I pretty much rely almost entirely on the keyboard.
The keyboard and keyboard emulators like switches are important types of assistive technologies. Not everyone uses a mouse. WCAG has a success criterion for that as well, 2.1.1 keyboard.
I love forums that let you select information you've already entered. It's a health forum, and they were taking your family history, and they actually saved your relatives so that you could keep plugging them in. So I could select, who had cancer. I could select from, maternal grandfather. Instead of having to type all these names, it let me set their names up, and then it would let me plug them back in. And just not having to type, the first name of somebody, 16 more times, it made a huge difference for me. it was just an incredibly simple thing that they did. You know, they just saved a list of the entries you made.
For sure. I really like forms like that too, Kyle. Efficiency is important for physical and cognitive energy conservation, and honestly, helps contribute to a faster and more pleasant form filling experience for everyone. Using autocomplete and avoiding redundancy are supported by WCAG with its success criteria of 1.3.5 identify input purpose and 3.3.7 redundant entry.
If people were more thoughtful and took the time to understand people like me, that it would all be better. My name is Kyle.
Name that principle one more time. What principles relate to being able? Understandable for robust. What do folks think? 1 and 3. 1 and 3. 2. Got 3 and 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's find out. All right, so specifically what was called out here, perceivable, operable, and understandable. So very good again. And so maybe you thought of something kind of a similar thinking about operable as related to Mark's and Eric's, but any other situations that you can think of, maybe when you're creating form fields, being able to put that autocomplete abilities on those form fields for folks. Any other strategies or solutions that may have come to mind throughout these?
Similarly, this comes to mind is just password utilities, and auto-generating passwords, because, with all the special characters and everything you have to put in there, sometimes, you have to do like 12, or at a job I had to do 21 one time. So that's a huge obstacle.
Passwords. Oh, that's a big one. There's another chair here on the second row if anybody wants to come and sit down.
I think search functionality that auto completes and brings up certain available results as you're typing can assist with specifically what Kyle's criteria were.
Yeah, that's a big help, right? It kind of narrows down. Yeah, yeah, it'll narrow down your search as you're typing, so you have to type out the whole darn thing. Yeah, I love that too. That's great. That is very helpful.
One more thing, it kind of gets down to cognitive load on a page. So if you have a page with 27 form fields on it, the reason I know all this is I had long COVID, a severe case of it. So passwords I spent 3 hours on a password. I couldn't count to 20 at one time. So it wears off, so and I'm recovered, but I remember all the obstacles that I had. So a form that I think, this is a guideline more than a standard, but something like 8 form fields on a page would be a max, is what I would call. But anything that simplifies a page and puts them into bite-sized chunks where people can handle.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
I think we've got one more person to write, or one more person to meet.
Lisha, we used to work with her at Nelnet, and she's actually become a really good friend of mine. So let's hear her story.
I have 2 kids, a husband and a dog. I have 2 little kids. My son's 5 and my daughter's 10 months.
Alicia's name appears.
I have chronic migraine, and I also recently was diagnosed with ADHD, so more than one thing challenge going on with me. My son has autism. Even in our extended family, there's a lot of neurodivergence. I used to enjoy playing music. Bass guitar was my favorite, but I have not done that in a while, and that is kind of related to my chronic migraine. I also have Chiari's malformation, and it's just kind of made it hard for me to control my hands. I do enjoy makeup. I think that's my creative outlet because it's easier to find your face than like a piece of paper or a canvas. I would say technology can be a huge, it can be detrimental or very helpful to somebody with a disability. The example I'm thinking of is so many things out of the box, where whether it's on a laptop or a website, a lot of them have white backgrounds, and I have learned light can be a migraine trigger, but there's so many times that those light backgrounds you can't change, and so it's detrimental to being able to work. You get past your threshold, and I have missed so many days of work. I think it's because of looking at white backgrounds. But then the flip side to that is, if you can use dark mode, or I also use color veil, those two things really help reduce that light sensitivity, so I'm able to work more. Another thing that I use to help me focus is text to speech. Sometimes I'm having to layer all these assistive technologies because there's not one thing that does it all. So I hope that you can see color veil. I'm going to turn it off so you can see. This is just dark mode, and then I turn color veil on and it has that maroon overlay. This is just immersive reader.
In the browser, from a Wikipedia page, text only is shown and highlighted one line at a time.
You can see I can change colors. I think I can change, the font, and this helps my eyes track because I also need help just, tracking where I'm at.
Text-to-speech and immersive reader can be so beneficial. For text-to-speech, font and color changing and tracking technologies like that to work, it is important that actual text, and not images of text, is used. It's also important that things read in order. WCAG has success criteria supporting all of this, including 1.3.2 meaningful sequence, 1.4.5 images of text, and 1.4.9 images of text no exception.
And I'm not sure about what this would qualify, but just being able to kind of block out text where you see like one line at a time as you're going down the page. That's in Kindle. And there may be other, I think there's some dyslexic font as well.
Mhm.
So things like that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes, Immersive Reader and Edge does that one line at a time too. There are some other extensions that can do that. Open Dyslexic is the name of the open source font that maybe you're referring to. Sometimes folks have appreciated using Comic Sans too.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
So in a different assistive technology perspective, at our university, we like to provide guided reading strips for students. So if there's only educational materials provided on paper, it's little strips about this big or paragraph size that are different colors where they can pick, and it helps them with written materials as well. And those have been very helpful.
So I know, like on our website at the American Psychological Association, some years back, we always use the heading orders, but we were kind of mixing them up. We were doing like H2, and just visually, we wanted the website to look good, so we was, a lot of times people would skip to H5 just because of how it looked appearance wise. But then, once we really started making this push for accessibility, we really understood that the headings and everything should be in order. So, now we've included something called a pseudo, which basically you can make the appearance of it it may look like a H3 or something like that, but it really needs to be H2. So the pseudo will be H2. So if you're reading it using a screen reader, then it'll actually person using the screen reader, it will read H1, H2, but visually you can still have it look good how you want it to look. So that was just something that.
Cool. Yeah.
So thanks for the strategy. That reminds me too, sometimes my students, they have PDFs of their textbooks. And getting it to read in the right order sometimes was so hard because of the text-to-speech technology, not necessarily a screen reader, but screen readers will pull from the accessibility tags, whereas text-to-speech pulls from like the order and the content. So having to get those nice and in order so that it's not jumping to the marginal content, then down to the footer, then up to the first paragraph was a strategy very well.
And by default, PDF, they put the page number at the top of the content panel. So like Robin was saying, it would read the page number first and then go back up to the top of the page. So the student would see, oh, well, that sentence that I'm talking about was on page 2. They're like, well, no, we can't find it. It's not at the bottom of page 2 or, so it'd be very, very confusing to them as to what page that they were on. So yeah, and that's one thing that we always talk about in our class is that, the tagging order, your accessibility tags, that's the way the screen reader is going to read it. But when you're using Immersive Reader or these other reading tools that a lot of people use that don't necessarily use screen readers, is coming from the reading order. So PDF always warns you, make sure you check that too. And that doesn't mean just the tag order. So check your reading order too. But then make sure you change it in the content panel, not the reading order panel. All these little neat tips and tricks that, Robin and I always share. We've learned because of Hard Knocks of, creating a lot of really bad PDFs. Anyway, that's everyone we have to meet, right? So
shared, so we have some takeaways. So we talked about how having names for buttons, text, not just the images, can be really helpful. We talked about making sure that our captions are checked in quality and accurate. We talked about bookmarklets for target size, checking that, searching those. We talked about different color contrast checkers, webbing, Figma. We talked about making sure our reading order is correct, strategy for making pseudo headings, things like that. So lots of great things were shared today. So I hope that this was helpful to have some takeaways of practical things to do. But now.
okay, well, how about that question we asked in the very beginning? What is WCAG really about? Has that kicked in with anybody yet? I'm sorry? User. Okay. User. Anybody else? What is WCAG really about?
It's about universal design, making it inclusive.
I see a lot of heads bobbing. That's good. Enabling.
Experiences.
Wow, some really awesome answers.
Just on Zoom. Okay. Shall we?
Yeah. It's about people, right? All these people that we heard from today. It's what WCAG is really about. What as you're learning WCAG and as you're learning accessibility, or maybe you've been in accessibility for years, just think about the people as you're doing stuff, you know. And here were 5 great people that you can think of if you don't have anybody else in your life or your family or whatever that needs this accessibility stuff. I mean, think about Eric, you know, he just wants to be a bird watcher. But for him to be able to control it on his phone, he needs to have voice control. For Mark, our buddy, who, by the way, Robin, he had just sent us a message saying way to go. So hey, wherever you are, wherever the camera is. Hey Mark, glad you're watching from Zoom land. For Mark, right? Make sure you're accessible so that he can lead a team at work. It just blows me away. All the control and everything he does. We'll be in a meeting and, you know, his eyes will be looking around at the screen and he'll be typing messages quicker than I can type on my keyboard. So, yeah, fantastic. Sure, go ahead. You got a question over here?
Just a statement. UX uses a lot of personas for things where they kind of capture these people and put them into templates, but they're not really persons. And I think you're using persons instead of personas is a lot more powerful in front of like a CEO.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. And we do have our slides out there, but unfortunately, we've been asked not to share the videos out. So the slide is out there. The transcripts of the videos are out there. So, you know, you guys can read the transcripts or share them. Or if you really want, you know, we'll be happy as Nelnet to provide this presentation for your group, for your company. And we've done that before. So with some really head turners of people trying to get through to their management why they really need to do accessibility. And we showed this video, and like the next week they wanted more training already of other stuff that we could help them do. So
Much, everyone. If you'd like to contact us, you can at david.dauber, that's david.cauber@nelnet.net, or myself, robin.eckleberry@nelnet.net, robin.eckleberry. But thanks so much for your participation and sharing your stories.
yes, thank you all. And please, on the surveys that they have online for Access U, please fill ours out. I mean, please fill them all out, of course. But definitely for Robin and I, we'd love to know what you liked, maybe what we could do better next time. So yeah, thank you all for coming very much.